reporting, NBC News is reporting, that President Biden is considering giving preemptive pardons to the likes of Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, and Anthony Fauci. If President Biden doesn't issue those pardons, do you think they are going to wish that he had? Are they going to be pursued?
I can tell you this about Cheney, and she's a so-called Republican. I think she hurt the Democrats terribly. When I saw that Kamala put Cheney out on the campaign trail, I said, that's the end of Kamala. I really did. I thought it was a terrible move, especially if you're a Democrat. But Cheney did something that's inexcusable, along with Thompson and the people on the Unselect Committee of political thugs and, creeps. So the Unselect Committee went through a year and a half of testimony. Wait. They deleted and destroyed all evidence of that they found. You know why? Because Nancy Pelosi was guilty. Nancy Pelosi turned down 10,000 troops. You wouldn't have had a J6 because other people were guilty. The people that said that I attacked 2 Secret Service agents in a car. I grabbed one around the neck. I was then rebuffed, and I grabbed the other one. These are 2 of the toughest men anywhere on the planet. They happen to be slightly younger than me, maybe, just a little bit. Let me just tell you. They testified. They said it was total. And all of this stuff came out. People lied so badly. Now, listen, this was a committee, a big deal. They lied. And what did they do? They deleted and destroyed a whole year and a half worth of testimony. Do you know that I think those people committed a major crime. Sir? And Cheney was behind it. Well, and so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
The walls are closing in on Liz Cheney. You are not going to believe what President Trump has in store for her and the J6 Kangaroo Committee and Schiff and Fauci and tens of thousands of swamp creatures that the new Trump administration is poised to end and bring to justice once and for all. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. Come on in, one and all. We got a jam-packed show for you today, so make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. I mean, my, oh my, have the tables turned. I mean, think about how the tables, I remember back in 2021 when the J6 committee was just formed. And I remember all the headlines like this one right here from the Hill, where, they all read, the walls are closing in on Donald Trump. The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. The committee's vice chairperson, Liz Cheney at the time, she was out there frothing at the mouth on all the talk shows on MSNBC and CNN and ABC, announcing that her cohorts on that kangaroo committee were going to finally take Trump down. That's it. We got him. We got him. We're going to peg Trump with criminal liability for obstructing Congress's electoral college vote count. We got him. They were going to get Trump. They were going to get members of his family. They were going to get members of his inner circle. The walls are closing, and it's just a matter of time. You remember that? Well, now here we are, 3 years or so later, and Liz Cheney is a political has-been. She is the very definition of a political failure. She is bereft of any power whatsoever after having been humiliated and losing her primary by double digits in a literal historic unprecedented defeat. And by contrast, President Trump was just reelected in what was nothing less than the single biggest Republican landslide victory in 40 years. Now, if all you did was listen to the legacy media, you'd probably be thinking that the opposite happened, wouldn't you? Availing yourself only of coverage from the legacy media, you'd think the opposite happened. For example, if you Google Trump Cheney, Google it, try it, Trump Cheney, you'll get headlines like this one. This one from ABC News. This is one of the first ones that popped up on my feed, my Google feed. Ridiculous and false. Cheney, Schiff, pushback after Trump says January 6 committee members should be jailed. So the headline looks as if Cheney and Adam Schiff have the moral and political high ground here. Right? I mean, same with this one. This one from The Guardian. Liz Cheney calls Trump threat to jail her an assault on the rule of law. So now she's the one now who in this article goes on to say that she could that sanctions can be imposed on any effort to investigate the J6 committee. Again, you'll notice it's Liz Cheney that's in the moral high ground here. It's Liz Cheney that's reported as the one who has the rule of law on her side and who could somehow magically summon sanctions to push back against any threatened investigation. Obviously, absent is any mention from these articles whatsoever the fact that she lied, that she witness tampered, that she covered up evidence. Forget all that. The legacy media fabricates reality in accordance with executive-approved narratives that always favor the Democrat establishment. There's just one problem with all of this. It's a little thing called reality. Yes, reality. And the reality is President-elect Donald Trump is about to redefine the presidency like never before. And in redefining the presidency, he's going to be redefining federal bureaucracy and Washington, D.C. for the foreseeable future in such a way that people like Cheney and Schiff and Fauci are indeed going to be held accountable. Now, what do I mean by that? There was a very interesting piece in the New York Magazine on how Trump is poised to change the nation by changing D.C. He's going to change the nation by changing the very way in which the federal government functions. And he's got twin allies in this endeavor, two major sort of contextual allies. He's got the conservative majority in the Supreme Court that's thus far been very accommodating to his interpretation of the presidency and their immunity decision and of federal bureaucracy in two recent decisions I'll talk about in a moment. And he's got a unified Congress with the Republican takeover of both the House and the Senate. Now, we've talked about the importance of the two recent Supreme Court decisions, the overturning the Chevron doctrine that up until this point had empowered the administrative state in the courts, and that all courts across the country were basically, they were mandated to defer to the technical expertise of bureaucrats in all matters of regulation. Well, that's over now. And you had the West Virginia versus the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, which that decision says that the agencies may not impose regulations dealing with major economic or policy questions unless Congress expressly and specifically authorizes them to do so. And so these two decisions have basically set the stage for dismantling the administrative state. When Elon and Vivek wrote their op-ed in the Wall Street Journal for how they were going to dismantle the administrative state, they rooted that dismantling in these two key Supreme Court decisions. So the fact that Trump has a friendly court and a friendly Congress sets the stage for how he's going to use executive power to drain the swamp and bring swamp creatures like Liz Cheney to justice. Now, we've talked about this on a number of videos, but both Elon and Vivek are openly stating that Trump will use executive action like never before. But it's going to be used in such a way where the changes are permanent. So what they mean is that Trump will, through executive action, basically eliminate tens of thousands of positions throughout the managerial state that are under executive power, and then return their jurisdiction back to Congress. It's something very similar to what Kash Patel is openly talking about doing with the FBI, breaking it up, farming out a number of their investigative bodies into other organizations like Homeland Security. It's basically it's a process of dispersing the centralized power of the deep state. But that act alone has the potential, according to this assessment by New York Magazine, that act alone has the potential of eliminating at least 50,000 bureaucratic jobs from D.C. That's their number, 50,000. Now, I call it a nice start, right? But what's so interesting is that this article in this New York Magazine, which of course is hopelessly liberal, it was written a few weeks back. And so this is before Trump chose Kash Patel. So in the article, they're very, very concerned that Trump is going to follow through with his threat of firing Christopher Wray, the great Christopher Wray of the FBI, right, as an FBI director, even though Christopher Wray still has 2 more years to go in his tenure. So they thought that would be an unusually brazen act of executive power on Trump's part. Well, now, of course, that turned out to be prophetic. We all now know that Trump has indeed appointed Kash Patel as FBI director, and Christopher Wray has now reportedly confirmed that he will resign before Trump is inaugurated to prevent being fired by him. So just at this point, we can already see a radically revamped DC in the making. And the key here again is all these executive actions are going to they're going to bring these agencies back under the control of Congress. And the reason why that's so important is because now, with Congress having authority that was given to them by virtue of the West Virginia versus the EPA ruling, now that Congress has this authority now, a simple executive order in the future from a Democrat can't revamp and reactivate and bring back the administrative state. No, now they're going to need the permission of Congress to do that. And you could be assured once Congress has power, they're not going to give it up. So we're seeing the effect dismantling of the administrative state through executive order, through EOs, but you're not going to be able to reconstruct it through EOs. Again, that's the key to what Vivek and Elon Musk have been talking about. But this is all just where it begins. We now know that Trump has appointed, you're going to love this, he's appointed Russell Vought to lead the Office of Management and Budget, the same position he held during Trump's first presidency. So Vought, this is not his first rodeo. He's already done this before. But what do you know? As it turns out, Vought, if you can believe it, was one of the key architects of none other than Project 2025. I mean, you literally cannot make this stuff up. I love the tweets out there. They're like, they've been coming out. I think I even tweeted or retweeted something like that. So after months and months of Trump distancing himself from Project 2025, ever since he won, all those tweets have been like, yeah, never mind. You were right. Project 2025 is going to be lit, right? So now, if you don't know, Project 2025 centers on the president implementing a new category of federal employee called Schedule F. And what Schedule F would do is it allows the president to fire huge swaths of the civil service at will, making them answerable to him personally. Now, they began to implement Schedule F in the latter part of Trump's first term. In fact, it was the last, as I understand, it was the last executive order that Trump signed. But Vought was unable to implement the change before Trump was ousted. And then, of course, Biden just immediately rescinded the EO. Well, it looks like as of January 20th, day one, Schedule F will indeed be revived. But there's something absolutely essential to understanding in all this in terms of political strategy. The key here is that only those loyal to the MAGA movement in the civil service are going to keep their jobs. That's at the heart of the Project 2025 blueprint. And this is why the Democrats are so freaked out over it. You don't just fire tens of thousands. you ensure that the ones who stay are all super MAGA. You fire tens of thousands of Democrats, you fire tens of thousands of swamp loyalists, and you keep MAGA loyalists. And this is all happening as Kash Patel and Pam Bondi take over the FBI and DOJ, respectively. Remember, Bondi has long said that it's her number one priority to prosecute the prosecutors. She's going after she's investigating the investigators. And again, the key here is that both the FBI and the DOJ are going to weed out all of the swamp creatures and keep only those loyal to MAGA. That's at least the schema that they're following here. There's no way around it. This is classic brass knuckles politics, right? You reward your friends, you punish your enemies. This is why Trump is promising to pardon all the J6 protesters on his first day in office. Right, he talked about that on Meet the Press on Sunday. He's going to drill, baby, drill, close the border, start mass deportations, and pardon the J6 protesters all on day one. Now, if that is the pattern that we're seeing emerge in the Trump 2.0 administration to close the loop on this, what do you think is going to happen to the likes of Liz Cheney? What do you think is going to happen to Adam Schiff, who spent 2 years lying incessantly about Russian collusion and was censored by Congress for doing so? What do you think is going to happen when Trump unleashes Bobby Kennedy and Rand Paul to investigate Fauci? It's now being widely recognized that the dream team that Trump is putting together as his inner circle, his cabinet, they're being assembled ultimately to destroy the people that tried to destroy Trump. Again, this is a brass knuckles politics here. They all know what's going on. Elon has basically said this. All of them, Tulsi, RFK, Kash, Pete Hegseth, you name it, all of them know that if they fail to destroy those who tried to destroy Trump and the MAGA movement as a whole, then Trump's presidency will unlikely be a long-term success. Again, like we saw in just after 2020, all the good things he could do can be wiped away by a bunch of EOs. The good news in all of this is Trump and his team recognize that the total draining of the swamp and dismantling of the administrative state is central to destroying those who tried to destroy him. So the entire nation benefits. But that's what makes what Trump is doing so astonishing. His retribution really is indeed success. But make no mistake, it's still retribution. It is, we could call it restorative retribution, right? His righteous justice carried out on his enemies also happens to be very good vehicle for public policy because they're not just his enemies, they're enemies of vibrant, patriotic, and flourishing America. We're already getting word that the 51 so-called intelligence experts that lied about the Hunter Biden laptop, they're all going to have their security clearance permanently revoked, at the very least. I think that's a done deal, given how Kash Patel was so central to the investigations under the first Trump administration that uncovered so much corruption inside the FBI with the Russian collusion hoax. Again, it's all the same. There's a common root to all of this. It's loyalty to the swamp versus loyalty to MAGA. It's loyalty to the swamp versus loyalty to making America great again. Trump's second term is all about draining the swamp and replacing it with MAGA loyalists through and through. If he does that, then you can be assured that when it comes to Liz Cheney and the J6 committee, a day of reckoning is coming. They were right. The walls are indeed closing in. But in a stunning turn of irony, it's Trump, not the Kangaroo Committee, who will in the end be smiling. Gang, as you know, we look out for each other on this channel. Your safety and your security are our number one priority. So if you haven't secured the deed to your home as of yet, you need to click on that link below right now and protect yourself and your loved ones. I was absolutely shocked when I found out how easy it is to access the deed to my house, and not just access it, but actually change it. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. But the problem is that all our deeds are now online, and criminals are free to find your deed, forge your signature, refile as the new homeowner, take out tons of loans using your home's equity, and then they stick you with all the debt. But that's where our good friends over at Home Title Lock come in. Gang, they're simply amazing. Home Title Lock gives you the peace of mind that the deed to your home is absolutely and completely protected 24/7. Click on that link below right now. Use promo code TurleyTalks. Then all you got to do is enter your address for your no obligation home title scan to see if you've already been a victim of deed theft. It's a $100 value, absolutely totally free with my promo code TurleyTalks. Gang, don't wait for the worst to happen only to regret you didn't do something about it when you could have. Do what I've done. Do what countless patriots have done. Click on that link below right now and secure your home today.
Seen so far, he's really come in, and there have been many times I've been traveling over the course of the campaign with my father-in-law in the car with him going places, and Barron will call and he'll say, "Dad, I have an idea as to how you can get more votes," and it'll be, you need to go meet, go to this baseball stadium or do this, whatever. Wow. He's always throwing ideas out there, and so we got to give Barron some serious credit.
That's amazing. So now that the election is over, we're hearing more and more stories about how Barron Trump actually had a powerful influence on this election. He did that by advising his father on which podcast shows he should go on as a guest, which venues to attend, even apparently which stunts to pull, like working at McDonald's or the trash truck bit and all the others. That apparently was Barron. Now, what's so key here is that Barron had the foresight to understand, and his father had the wisdom to listen, that the legacy media was indeed dying, and that alternative media, parallel media, and the hyper connectivity of the network society was really going to have a far larger influence on this election than anything we had ever seen before. But I want you to just look at the Trump family as a whole for a second. I mean, one thing that I've always been surprised by is just how loyal and how together they are as a family. I mean, many families, especially those on TV, are in utter disarray and problems from end to end. But no, the Trump family have it together, and they have it together so well that they actually won the most powerful position in the world. And again, they did it together. So how can we develop legacies like that? I mean, not only in loyalty to one another, but also in our finances, our relationships, and in many other areas. Because as patriots, we want to build legacies. Frankly, we want to build dynasties that we could pass down to our children, just like the Trump family and many others are doing. So joining me today is Lance Welch. Lance is a certified business development coach with the John Maxwell Organization, as well as a certified behavioral consultant for DISC personality profiles. Now, Lance has a new book out, The Legacy Navigator, Creating Intentional Multi-Generational Impact, which has just come out, which you can get just by clicking on the link in the description below. Lance, welcome. Congratulations on your new book. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be a part of your show.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And we were talking before the interview. We're both in our 50s. We're talking about legacy and the like, just the concept of the legacy becoming front and center to us. Yeah. I mean, can you, before we get into that, can you give it, you're on the front lines of building legacies. In your view, what has or is the Trump family, what are they doing that has helped them build such a strong legacy?
Well, it's a great question. And I think all you have to do is just look at the family and the longevity that they've been together. And as you described earlier, there's a tremendous amount of loyalty within the ranks of the Trump family. The oldest three have been very involved with various aspects, whether it's real estate business, the apprentice deal, or his administration and building. I wasn't aware, though, that Barron had any input on the presidential campaign part. So I think when you look at it, it's Trump himself. President Trump seems to be very, very oriented to involving the input of his kids.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot for a patriarch, especially a very strong-willed, dynamic patriarch, to be willing to listen to his kids. And the fact that he's willing to do that, it's shown over and over. He is very intentional on what type of a legacy is going to leave. And I think he's also smart enough to realize his legacy isn't necessarily about what he personally does. His legacy is going to be based upon what do those that come behind him do.
Wow.
So I think that's very intentional.
It is, and it's funny because he always got slammed, in his first term for being nepotistic and putting all these family members in place. But again, it wasn't until encountering your work that I realized, actually there's probably something a lot deeper. I'm sure it could be nepotism, but there's something a bit deeper going on there. And the way you explained it right there, I think I think brings important points to mind. How should people start building a legacy for themselves? So we're seeing this wonderful model in front of us in the guise of the first family here. How about for us? What's the first step we can take to build a legacy like that?
Man, I love this, because one of the things we have to realize, first of all, is whether we realize it or not, whether we do anything intentional or not, we are creating a legacy. Mm-hmm. In the book, I give a comparison about two families back in the 1700s. One was Max Jukes. Very few people know about who he was, but he left an amazing negative legacy. And it tells a whole story about his lineage. And the other was Jonathan and Sarah Edwards. They left a very positive legacy. And there was a study done, and it's all highlighted in the book, but it was a 150-year study of what was the lineage of these two families. One of the most devastating quotes that I want to make sure, and I know you do, will never be said about us. This is what was said of the Max Jukes family. Not one positive person came out of his lineage in 150 years. So whether we realize it or not, we are creating a legacy. I remember many years ago, one of the quotes that was given to me as far as what is a legacy, and there's a lot of them, it's that thing that refuses to be buried when you are. My legacy is going to be, what impact will my sons and my grandchildren have? That will be a big part of my legacy, not what I personally get to do, but have I equipped and resourced them to have amazing lives and be amazing humans.
Unbelievable. I got to meet one of Jonathan Edwards, like great grandsons. And he came and spoke at a classical school that I was teaching at. Again, brilliant fellow, scholar, author, and so forth. And so, you see it in real time. It's amazing what he left. And also I even for the nation, I read one article that said he was a sort of a tacit founding father. He was behind the scenes in terms of the first Great Awakening and the spiritual renaissance that helped to propel democracy and independence for a unique American identity. So, wow, that's so cool. I haven't talked about Jonathan. I could talk to you about Jonathan Edwards for hours. I haven't done that in a while. But we got to stay on the legacy here. You write about the 4 legs of the family legacy impact. Can you flesh that out for us?
Yeah, I'd love to. And the legacy table is what I actually call it in the book. It actually came from a phrase that my wife used to tell our boys all the time. She said, you will always have a seat at the table. You may not want to be there, but you will always have a seat. And when you think about what does a legacy mean, most people, when they think legacy, they think about a financial inheritance. But wealth is really only one leg. And I put it as the 4th leg, because honestly, there's an entire industry built up around helping people transfer wealth. So it's easy to transfer wealth from one generation to another, but also from the studies, we know that 90% of all wealth is dissipated. It's gone within 3 generations. So what can we do to impact the transfer of wealth? Well, the first leg for me is vision. Second leg is values. The third leg is knowledge. And the fourth one is wealth. So when I am intentional on creating a vision and transferring it, creating values and transferring it, identifying my unique gifts, my unique genius to the world, and I can help transfer that, I've now addressed all 4 legs of the legacy table. And I'm convinced that when you fully address those first 3, that 4th leg of transferring wealth will be the absolute easiest of the group.
I love it. So, but we tend to think of legacy. We tend to put wealth as the first.
We
That's the
do.
mistake that we make. Yeah.
Cor-
Vision,
yes.
values, knowledge. I love it. So what's the goal of having a strong family legacy? Why don't we do one of the your major leg here? Why don't we cast a vision for our listeners here?
You know, the vision for having an intentional legacy is, am I clear on how I want to be remembered? Knowing full well that the legacy is that thing that refuses to be buried when I am. What is going to be said? I give some examples in the book too about how someone just reading an erroneous obituary about themselves completely changed the way they were living their life. They converted all of their worldly wealth into transforming change. And it was because they read a story about how did someone else perceive their life and when it was lived. So one of the exercises in the book is how could you go about writing your own eulogy? If you could write it today, what would it say? Another exercise is, if you were to write what would be said today and you're not thrilled with it, guess what? You can begin today to recreate or reframe what is going to be said about you when you pass. Wow. You know, that's one of the things we know is going to happen. We will pass at some point. And while we're still here, we get to dictate what message is going to be communicated. You know, so in the book specifically, the appendix is full of exercises to take the guesswork out. You know, a lot of people, when you talk to them about building a legacy, they get overwhelmed with all that can be done or should be done, or they let it build up bigger in their head than it really is. In the book, at the end of each chapter, there are chapter ending questions that allows you to review the chapter with a few targeted questions and begin to implement those exercises. In the very back of the book, there's I think 5 appendixes, A through E, and each one of them is something you can pull out and begin to implement with your family. You know, I was really thinking that this was going to be written from the perspective of people my age, where I've got grown men and they're raising their own families. I'm getting so much feedback from the younger families, and they're looking at the exercises that we did with our boys when they were 10, 11, 12 years old, and they're beginning to implement some of those things. And that is one of the most refreshing things and encouraging things. Is it doesn't really matter the age of somebody. It is never too early to begin. It is never too late to begin, but to recognize when you're intentional, you can actually begin to get the results that you want.
Yeah. Amazing. And results that'll last way beyond you. Yeah. And on into perpetuity. Exactly. Dang, if you want to build a legacy, you need to click on the link below. Check out this amazing book, The Legacy Navigator, Creating Intentional Multi-Generational Impact. It promises to be a real life changer, not just for you, but for generations to come. So just click on the link in the description or scan the QR code to get yourself a copy. Absolutely amazing stuff. Lance, thank you so much for being with us. It was wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. We all have an opportunity to finally stop big tech and government overreach. It's happening, gang. Patriots are reclaiming our privacy, and you have no better way of protecting yourself than with SLNT. That's short for silent. Silent's Faraday products block all incoming and outgoing signals so no one can get their hands on your information. From key FOBs to phones and laptops, simply place your device inside, close the sleeve, and that's it. You're off the grid and safeguarded from unauthorized access. Go silent today by clicking on that link below or going to slnt.com/Turley to save 15% plus free shipping on all qualifying orders. Stay ahead of what's coming and secure your privacy today. Again, that's slnt.com/Turley for 15% off and free shipping on all qualified orders. slnt.com/Turley.